One of the cool things about Age of Overlord is how the set is giving us these really strong and versatile generic extra deck monsters that seem like they can fit in like 90% of competitive decks. Call it Fake Zeus, Baby Zeus, Anti-Zeus. The card's real TCG name is Super Star Slayer Typhon Sky Crisis. Yeah, this was clearly given to us by the same person who came up with Divine Arsenal AA Zeus Sky Thunder. Anyways, the card has a lot of hype surrounding it, but is it deserving of the hype? This card is very unique in function, but actually shares a lot in common with Zeus, outside of obviously the obnoxiously long name. Just like Zeus, it's a high attack, rank 12 Xyz monster whose stats are the same. This one is a dark attribute monster, which probably won't matter much, and is 100 attack and defense lower. But a la Zeus, despite being a rank 12, Konami gave duelists a super simple way to cheat this card out that never requires you to ever summon a level 12 monster, but rather you can summon this beast after a specific condition is met. Zeus's condition was having an Xyz monster battle, which we've learned over the past 3 years is stupidly easy to meet. Star Slayer is much different, as its condition is something that you actually have no control over whatsoever. Star Slayer can be Xyz summoned by using your highest attack monster as material during or the turn after your opponent has summoned 2 monsters from the extra deck. If you summon Slayer that way, you can't normal or special summon for the rest of the turn, so basically a Predaplant Verte Anaconda restriction. It's a super interesting concept because again, your opponent's special summoning monsters from the extra deck is something technically you have no control over. Obviously, there are going to be decks like Unchained, Tearlament, Branded, and Vanadium that want to summon from the extra deck numerous times in their first turn, but outside of, I guess, hand trapping them to death, how much they do so is really up to them. I bring this up because there is a little bit of a Nibiru factor here. Rescue Ace would be a prime example of a deck that can summon anywhere from 0 monsters from the extra deck during its opening play to maybe 3 or 4. So it wouldn't actually shock me if there are some decks and players who slightly adjust their opening moves to make it so that Slayer isn't live and you can't use it against them. The reason players would want to do this is because Slayer has some amazing on-field effects. First, it can detach a material to return 1 monster on the field to the hand. This is non-targeting, by the way, which we all know is always amazing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Second, monsters on the field with 3,000 or more attack cannot activate their effects while Slayer is face up, which instantly makes it one of the best Zeus counters in the entire game, as moving forward, let's say that you were staring down a 4 or even 6 material Zeus. You can now summon literally any monster you have available, rank up in the Slayer, and then just out it with the bounce effect. Your opponent won't be able to use Zeus's effects because Slayer is of course face up on the field. Translation, they now would have to shotgun Zeus every time that you had any monster on the field to protect themselves from this happening. The same goes for Mirror Jade or something like Vanquish Soul Caesar Valius. You can also turn off boss monsters that have negation or powerful trigger effects like Bestial Dispatter, Baron de Floor, Borreload Savage Dragon, Boral End Dragon, Queen Rakalos, or Tearlament's Rhinoheart. This is absolutely game changing, as one of the hardest things to do currently in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Is to play through boards full of these monsters and still have the pushing power to take them down with removal or in battle. Well, now you don't necessarily have to, as Slayer can be made early on in your turn to simply turn off all these boss monsters as you subsequently bounce one, or you can make it at the very end of your play post battle phase and use it as just free removal. Another thing that I really love about Star Slayer is how it can be a cheeky bailout play for decks that don't have a ton of extra deck options. Floowandereeze and Labyrinth are prime examples of this, as neither even have extra deck cards, and Flu basically never summons from the extra deck to begin with. But what exactly is the downside, for instance, in playing a single copy of this in Labyrinth? Think of all the times that you've had to go second and maybe your opponent has a board that includes Baron de Floor or Borreload Savage Dragon, something like a Queen Rakalos that you just know is going to negate your welcome trap and really screw you over. Well, now you could just turn any random furniture piece or even something like an Ariana into some instant removal. Heck, you could even go full risk mode and use Ariana's effect, expecting that your opponent won't negate that and will save it for the welcome card, and then you just rank up in the Slayer, bounce away their negates, and they never even got a chance to use it. For Floowandereeze, it's the same thing. Yes, you don't generally summon from the extra deck while playing Flu, but in dire situations like against Skill Drain, Zombie World, or there can be only one, Slayer could just be a giant beat stick sitting in your extra deck, which you're really not concerned about space when playing Flunder anyways. This can be even more important when you're dueling against someone who you know has access to Zombie World, like maybe when a branded player dumps the Necroworld Banshee off branded fusion and you know that it's coming during your turn. Now instead of running into that brick wall, you could just summon a little bird, not use the effect, and put your opponent on use Mirror Jade right now or else, because now if they don't, you rank the little bird up into Slayer, the Mirror Jade's turned off, you bounce it to their extra deck, and they get absolutely no effects while you still have a decently sized body on field to survive their next turn. Am I saying that these are perfect solutions that guarantee that you win these duels? Absolutely not, but they're way better than the current alternative of just doing nothing and losing, especially when you consider that just adding Star Slayer to the extra deck of these decks doesn't hinder or cost them in any way. With this all said, Star Slayer won't be useful against every deck in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Floowandereeze, Labyrinth, and Vanquish Soul are all examples of decks that can easily summon once or not at all from the extra deck in any given turn. However, as I just stated, these decks can all really take advantage of the card because they have so much free extra deck space. Honestly, because of its unique summoning requirement, Star Slayer can be played in literally any deck that summons monsters as part of its game plan to win, with I guess maybe the exception of something like Domain Monarchs. This doesn't mean that every deck in the metagame or every deck in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Should play the card, however, because of course we do have extra deck space limitations, and there are lots of decks out there like the Cyberse ones or ones that use branded fusions where they're usually locked at a certain point into a certain type or mechanic for the remainder of their turn. With that being said, outside of those specific restrictions, I believe that if you have the space, you 100% play Star Slayer. I think there's just too much potential to either steal wins that you probably wouldn't have been able to get in the past because, like I said, maybe you were playing Labyrinth and you went second, able to now instantly out a Baron de Fleur with one monster, or like me, you're playing something like Vanquish Soul and usually you only have one out in your entire deck to a Borland Dragon, which was infinite impermanence, but now Star Slayer was made at the end of my turn and I was able to easily bounce the card, thus capture victory. This card is absolutely excellent against boss monsters. It's a huge punish to the really big combo decks out there and even some mid-range decks. When they go first, it makes going second a little easier, which I like. And honestly, the downsides to this card are negligible because it can be made early or very late in your turn and you can still get great value out of it. It has non-targeting removal, which is just the bee's knees in Yu-Gi-Oh! And it even has great stats to boot. Honestly, when I first saw the card, I was like, you know what? Fake Zeus kind of sucks. It's not as good as the original, not broken or anything like that. But then I realized how easy it was to summon, how the on-field effect is incredible, and clearly that I was being an idiot. So I think this card is phenomenal. You're only going to need one copy, unless maybe you're running it in a deck that also runs like Extravagance or something like that. The card is confirmed to only be an ultra rare when it definitely deserves secret in my opinion, so that's definitely good news for anyone like myself who's going to be picking it up because the card should only be about $15, maybe a week or so after the official release of Age of Overlord. So yeah, definitely something I'm looking forward to, and let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Do you guys think that this card is overhyped? Do you think that it's appropriately hyped? Are you going to play it, etc, etc? Thank you guys for watching as always.